There was only one thing more heartbreaking than burying a wife, and that was watching her attend the funeral. On a cold October morning in Portland, more than 200 people gathered to say goodbye to Claire Bennett. Friends cried. Family prayed. Her 16-year-old daughter refused to let go of the coffin. At exactly 10:43 a.m., just as the pastor began his final prayer, every head in the church slowly turned toward the back doors. A woman dressed in black stood silently beneath the stained glass windows. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She simply watched. 3 seconds later, Claire Bennett's daughter screamed, "Mom!" Before anyone could reach her, the woman disappeared into the rain. But she left behind a handwritten note on the last pew. It contained 5 words that transformed a funeral into a murder investigation. "You're burying the wrong woman." The rain began before sunrise. By 8 o'clock, the skies over Portland had turned the color of ash, as if even the heavens had come to mourn. Black sedans lined the streets outside St. Matthew's Church. Friends, teachers, students, neighbors. More than 200 people had gathered to say goodbye to Claire Bennett. Inside the church, soft piano music drifted through the silence. At the front of the sanctuary rested a polished mahogany casket, surrounded by white lilies, Claire's favorite flower. A framed photograph beside the casket showed her warm smile, the same smile that had welcomed thousands of students through the doors of Lincoln Heights High School over the past 20 years. To everyone in the room, Claire Bennett was gone. 16-year-old Emma Bennett stood beside the casket, unable to move. She stared at the photograph, hoping that if she looked long enough, her mother would somehow walk through the church doors and tell everyone there had been a terrible mistake. Her father, Daniel Bennett, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We should sit down." Emma didn't look at him. "I never got to say goodbye." Daniel's voice cracked. "Neither did I." The closed casket made it even harder. The fire had left the body unrecognizable. The medical examiner had advised the family not to view the remains. Instead, they had identified Claire through her wedding ring, dental records, and the necklace she never took off. Emma swallowed hard. "It doesn't feel real." Daniel wrapped his arm around her. "I know." But something about his expression unsettled her. He looked heartbroken, yet strangely distracted, as if he were waiting for something. Near the back of the church, retired neighbor Grace Lawson quietly watched the Bennett family. At 68, Grace had attended more funerals than she cared to remember. But this one felt different. She couldn't explain why. Perhaps it was the silence. Perhaps it was Daniel's nervous glances toward the entrance every few minutes. Or perhaps it was the feeling that someone else was already inside the church, watching, waiting. At exactly 10:43 a.m., Pastor Michael Reynolds stepped to the pulpit. "We gather today to celebrate the life of Claire Elizabeth Bennett." His voice echoed softly through the sanctuary. "She was a devoted wife, a loving mother, and a woman whose kindness changed countless lives." Several people wiped away tears. Emma finally took her seat in the front pew. The pastor continued, "Though we struggle to understand why such a life was taken so soon, we find comfort in." The church doors creaked open. Every head turned. A woman dressed in a long black coat stood silently in the doorway. Her face was partly hidden beneath a dark veil. Rainwater dripped from the brim of her hat onto the stone floor. For several seconds, no one moved. Then a gust of wind lifted the edge of her veil. Emma froze. Her heart stopped. "Mom!" The whisper escaped her lips before she realized she had spoken aloud. The woman looked directly at her. She raised one trembling hand. as if she wanted to wave, as if she wanted to run to her daughter. Instead, tears filled her eyes, and she slowly shook her head. No! The church erupted into confusion. People stood. Someone screamed. Daniel spun toward the doorway, his face drained of all color. Claire? The woman turned and disappeared into the pouring rain. Wait! Emma shouted. She sprinted down the aisle. Daniel and Detective Marcus Hale, who had attended the funeral out of respect for the family, rushed after her. By the time they reached the church steps, the street was empty. No woman, no car, no footprints beyond those already blurred by the rain. It was as though she had vanished. Inside the church, Grace noticed something unusual. The last pew. A folded white envelope rested where the mysterious woman had been standing moments earlier. Detective, Grace called. Marcus carefully picked it up. There was no name on the front. Only 3 handwritten words. For Emma. Emma's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. 5 words written in familiar blue ink. You're burying the wrong woman. Emma's breath caught. She knew that handwriting. Every birthday card. Every lunchbox note. Every encouraging message left on her bedroom mirror before exams. It was her mother's. The detective looked from the note to the closed casket. No one spoke. Then Grace whispered the question everyone else was too afraid to ask. If Claire Bennett is standing outside this church. She slowly turned toward the coffin. Then who have we buried? The church emptied in stunned silence. No one spoke above a whisper. By evening, the story had spread across Portland. Some called it a cruel prank. Others insisted grief had caused hundreds of people to imagine the same face. But Detective Marcus Hale didn't believe in mass hallucinations. He believed in evidence. And the note in his hand was evidence. At Portland Police Headquarters, the white envelope sat inside an evidence bag beneath bright forensic lights. Marcus stared at the 5 handwritten words. You're burying the wrong woman. A forensic examiner entered the room. What do you think? Marcus didn't look up. I think whoever wrote this wanted us to find it. You think it's really Claire Bennett? I think someone wants us to ask that question. Across town, Emma refused to leave her bedroom. She spread every birthday card, Christmas card, and handwritten note her mother had ever given her across the bed. One by one, she compared them to the funeral note. The loops, the curves, the way her mother always crossed the letter T, the tiny heart she sometimes hid above lowercase i's. Emma's breathing became uneven. Every detail matched. There was no doubt in her mind. My mom wrote this. Daniel stood quietly in the doorway. You can't know that. Emma looked up, tears filling her eyes. I've seen her handwriting my whole life. Daniel gently picked up one of Claire's old journals. There are ways to copy handwriting. Emma stared at him. You didn't even look. For the first time that day, Daniel had no answer. Late that night, Detective Hale received an urgent call. The church security footage is ready. Within minutes, he was sitting in the security office with the church caretaker. The camera showed the entire funeral from the rear balcony. There she was, the woman in black. She entered exactly as the pastor began speaking. She never once looked at the casket. She looked only at Emma. Then Marcus noticed something strange. Pause it! The caretaker froze the video. The woman was holding something in her right hand. A silver necklace. Marcus leaned closer. Zoom in! The image sharpened. His pulse quickened. A silver locket shaped like a small rose. The same locket Claire Bennett had worn every day for nearly 20 years. The same locket listed in the coroner's report as having been recovered from the burned body. Marcus slowly leaned back. That's impossible. The next morning, the detective drove to the county morgue. Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Linda Brooks greeted him with a puzzled expression. I thought this case was closed. So did I. Marcus placed the photograph from the security footage on her desk. Her face immediately changed. Where did you get this? Church security. Dr. Brooks looked from the photograph to the evidence file. The locket. Marcus nodded. You said it was recovered from the victim. It was. So how is Claire wearing it at her own funeral? Neither of them had an answer. Marcus requested the evidence box from the crash. The burned jewelry was laid out carefully on a stainless steel table. Wedding ring, watch, car keys, and the silver rose-shaped locket. Except, Marcus frowned. This isn't the same one. Dr. Brooks looked confused. What do you mean? Marcus held up the security image beside the evidence. The engraving. Claire's real locket had a tiny scratch running through the rose. The one recovered from the crash didn't. Someone had made an almost perfect copy. Almost. Back at the Bennett home, Grace Lawson arrived carrying a casserole. She found Emma sitting on the front porch, still clutching the note. Grace sat beside her without saying a word. After a long silence, Emma asked, Do you think people can fake being someone else? Grace smiled gently. They can fake a face. She tapped the note. But they can't fake love. Emma looked down at the handwriting. My mom used to leave notes in my lunchbox every Friday. Grace nodded. And what did they always say? Emma smiled through her tears. Be brave, my little star. Grace's expression suddenly froze. What did you say? Emma blinked. My little star. Grace slowly reached for the funeral note and turned it over. Written in tiny letters at the bottom of the page, almost invisible unless the paper caught the light, were 4 words. Be brave, my little star. Emma gasped. Her mother had always hidden that sentence where only Emma would think to look. Grace whispered. She knew only you would find it. At that exact moment, Detective Hale's phone rang. A patrol officer spoke so quickly he could barely understand. Detective, you need to get down to the crash site. Why? There are fresh footprints. Marcus frowned. The accident happened 3 days ago. I know. The officer's voice trembled. They lead away from the wreck. Not toward it. The road to Cedar Ridge was still closed. 3 days earlier, flames had swallowed Claire Bennett's SUV after it plunged through a guardrail and into a wooded ravine. The fire had burned so intensely that investigators believed there was no chance anyone could have survived. Now, Detective Marcus Hale wasn't so sure. A young patrol officer waited beside the yellow tape. You'll want to see this, Detective. Marcus stepped carefully through the damp underbrush until they reached the bottom of the ravine. The burned shell of the SUV remained exactly where it had come to rest. Black. Twisted. Silent. The officer pointed toward a patch of soft earth about 20 yards away. We didn't notice these because of the rain. Marcus crouched. A single set of footprints. Small. Women's hiking boots. They didn't lead toward the wreckage. They began beside it and disappeared into the forest. His pulse quickened. If these belong to Claire. The officer finished the sentence. Then she walked away. Marcus followed the trail as far as it could be seen. Broken branches. A torn piece of black fabric caught on a thorn bush. And finally, a small pool of dried blood on a flat stone. Not enough to suggest a fatal injury. Just enough to prove someone had been hurt. He carefully bagged the fabric and photographed the scene. Then something caught his eye. Half hidden beneath a pile of wet leaves was a cell phone. Burned around the edges, but still intact. It wasn't listed in evidence, Marcus muttered. The officer shook his head. We searched this area twice. Marcus stared at the phone. Someone had missed it. Or someone had placed it there after the investigation. Back at the lab, technicians managed to recover part of the phone's contents. The screen flickered to life. Claire Bennett. Unlocked. Marcus opened the recent calls. The last outgoing call had been made just 11 minutes before the crash. Not to Daniel. Not to Emma. Not to emergency services. It was an unknown number. Duration: 27 seconds. Can we trace it? Marcus asked. The technician nodded. Already did. He turned the monitor toward Marcus. The registered owner made Marcus sit up straight. Victor Kane. Portland's most celebrated businessman. The same man scheduled to receive the city's Humanitarian Leadership Award in 48 hours. Marcus frowned. What business would a high school principal have with Victor Kane? No one in the room could answer. Meanwhile, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the footprints. If her mother had survived, why hadn't she come home? She walked into Claire's home office, a room Daniel hadn't allowed anyone to touch since the accident. Books still lined the shelves. A coffee mug sat half full on the desk. Claire's reading glasses rested on an open notebook. It looked as though she had simply stepped out for a moment. Emma slowly opened the notebook. Most of the pages contained meeting notes from school. Then one sentence, written in large block letters, caught her attention. If anything happens to me, don't trust the accident. Emma's heart pounded. She turned the page. It had been torn out. That evening, Daniel returned home to find Emma waiting in the living room. She held the notebook in her hands. Did you know Mom thought someone was after her? Daniel looked at the page. His face changed for only a second. But Emma noticed. I've never seen that before, he replied. You hesitated. I was surprised. No. Emma stepped closer. You were scared. Before Daniel could answer, his phone rang. The caller ID simply read, Private number. He stared at it for several seconds before answering. Hello? No one spoke. Only slow, steady breathing. Then the line went dead. Daniel looked out the front window. Across the street, a black sedan was parked beneath a streetlight. The engine was running. The headlights were off. By the time he rushed outside, the car had disappeared. At Portland Police Headquarters, Marcus finally received a forensic report on the black fabric recovered near the crash site. The lab technician entered carrying the results. You're not going to believe this. Marcus looked up. The blood on the fabric belongs to Claire Bennett. He felt a surge of hope. She's alive. The technician slowly shook his head. Maybe. Marcus frowned. What do you mean? The technician placed another report on the desk. The fabric itself. He paused. Doesn't belong to anything Claire was wearing the day of the crash. Marcus stared at the report in disbelief. If it isn't from Claire's clothes. The technician met his eyes. Then someone else was with her. Detective Marcus Hale stared at the lab report for nearly a minute. There had been someone else at the crash. Someone the investigators had never accounted for. Someone whose presence had been erased. He looked at the technician. Run every test again. We already did. And? The results didn't change. Marcus grabbed his jacket. Then we're reopening the entire case. Across town, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that her mother had been trying to leave her a trail. She returned to Claire's home office, determined to search every drawer, every shelf, every notebook. Grace Lawson quietly joined her. Your mother never did anything without a reason, Grace said. Emma smiled faintly. She always said the truth leaves fingerprints. Grace stopped. She said that? Emma nodded. It was her favorite phrase. Grace looked around the office. Then let's find her fingerprints. After 2 hours of searching, Emma noticed something odd. One family photograph on the bookshelf was slightly crooked. She straightened it. Nothing. But as she lifted the frame, she heard a soft click. A narrow compartment opened behind the shelf. Emma gasped. Hidden inside was a small flash drive taped to the back panel. Beside it lay another handwritten note. Emma immediately recognized the handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm already gone. Her hands trembled. Grace gently squeezed her shoulder. Keep reading. Below it were more words. Do not give this to the police. Find Detective Marcus Hale. Trust no one else. Emma looked at Grace. My mom knew this would happen. At the police station, Marcus received another surprise. Traffic investigators had finally recovered footage from a highway camera located 2 miles before the crash. The video quality was poor. Rain blurred much of the image. Still, Claire's SUV was clearly visible. Marcus leaned closer. Pause! The technician froze the frame. The front seat. Claire was driving. The passenger seat was occupied. A shadow. A person. The camera couldn't reveal the face. Only a dark silhouette. Marcus felt a chill. Claire had never been alone. Back at the Bennett home, Daniel returned earlier than expected. He found Emma and Grace standing in the office. The flash drive disappeared into Emma's pocket before he noticed. What are you two doing? Looking through Mom's things. Daniel sighed. I don't think that's healthy. Emma looked directly into his eyes. Why didn't you tell me Mom was meeting someone the night she died? Daniel froze. What? The police found another person in the car. His face lost all color. For a split second, he looked terrified. Then he recovered. I didn't know. Emma had seen enough. Her father was hiding something. The only question was he hiding it from her? Or from someone else? That evening, Emma secretly met Detective Hale at a quiet coffee shop across town. She slid the flash drive across the table. My mom left this for you. Marcus frowned. She specifically named me? Emma nodded. And she said not to trust anyone else. Marcus stared at the drive. His instincts told him not to plug it into any police computer. Instead, he took Emma to an old evidence room in the basement, where an isolated laptop, never connected to the internet, was used for digital examinations. He inserted the drive. A single video file appeared. No title. No date. Marcus clicked play. The screen flickered. Claire Bennett appeared. She looked exhausted, as though she hadn't slept in days. If you're watching this, she took a deep breath. Then my plan failed. Emma covered her mouth. Her mother's voice filled the room. I don't have much time. She looked over her shoulder, as if afraid someone was nearby. There are people who can make accidents look real. Marcus exchanged a glance with Emma. Claire continued. If anything happens to me, it wasn't Victor Kane who frightened me. Marcus frowned. Then who? Claire looked straight into the camera. The person you should fear. She hesitated. Is someone already inside my family? The video suddenly cut to black. Emma stared at the screen in disbelief. No. Marcus immediately tried to recover the rest of the file. Corrupted. Deleted. Gone. Only the final 2 seconds remained. A faint reflection appeared in the black screen. The silhouette of a man standing behind Claire. He wasn't facing the camera. But one detail was unmistakable. On his right hand, he wore a gold signet ring engraved with the letter K. The room fell silent. Claire's final words echoed through Detective Marcus Hale's evidence room. The person you should fear is someone already inside my family. Emma stared at the black computer screen. No. She shook her head repeatedly. My dad would never hurt Mom. Marcus didn't answer. After 20 years as a homicide detective, he had learned one painful truth. The people closest to a victim often knew the most. Sometimes, too much. Marcus made a copy of the flash drive and locked the original inside an evidence safe. No one else can know about this. Emma looked at him. Not even my father? Marcus hesitated. Especially not your father. Emma's heart sank. For the first time in her life, she wondered if she truly knew the man who had raised her. The next morning, Marcus paid an unexpected visit to Daniel Bennett's architecture firm. The office overlooked downtown Portland. Glass walls. Modern furniture. Awards covering every shelf. Daniel greeted him with a tired smile. Detective. I just have a few more questions. Daniel nodded. Of course. Marcus placed a photograph from the highway camera on the desk. Claire's SUV. A shadow in the passenger seat. Were you with your wife the night she died? Daniel looked at the image for several seconds. Then he quietly answered. No. Marcus watched him carefully. Are you sure? Daniel looked away. I told you. I was working late. Marcus leaned forward. So why did your office security log show you left 3 hours early? Silence. Daniel's face tightened. Finally, he whispered. Because I lied. Marcus didn't interrupt. I wasn't at the office. Then where were you? Daniel closed his eyes. I met Claire. Emma's mother had never mentioned that. Marcus felt the case shift beneath his feet. Where? Cedar Ridge. The crash site. Daniel nodded. Marcus stared at him. You were the second passenger. Daniel's confession came slowly. Claire had called him in tears that evening. She said she had discovered something so dangerous it could destroy powerful people. She wanted Daniel to meet her away from home. When he arrived, Claire handed him a thick manila envelope. She told me if anything happened to her. Daniel's voice broke. I had to protect Emma. What was inside the envelope? Daniel looked down. I never opened it. Marcus frowned. What did you do with it? Daniel swallowed hard. I hid it. Before Marcus could ask another question, the lights in Daniel's office suddenly went out. Darkness. A loud crash echoed from the lobby. Then, 3 gunshots. Glass exploded across the room. Down! Marcus shouted. He tackled Daniel to the floor as bullets tore through the office windows. Employees screamed. The fire alarm began blaring. Marcus drew his service weapon. Stay here. He rushed into the hallway. The gunman was already running toward the emergency stairwell. Black jacket. Black gloves. Face hidden beneath a hood. Marcus gave chase. Down 12 flights of stairs. Out into the parking garage. The gunman jumped onto a waiting motorcycle. Before speeding away, he deliberately dropped something onto the concrete. Marcus picked it up. A gold signet ring. Engraved with the letter K. The same ring seen in Claire's video. Back upstairs, Daniel sat trembling on the office floor. Marcus placed the ring on the desk. Do you recognize it? Daniel's face turned white. I've seen it before. Where? He looked toward the window. Claire showed me one. Marcus's pulse quickened. When? The week before she died. What did she say? Daniel took a deep breath. She said, if you ever see this ring again. His voice shook. Run. That afternoon, Marcus obtained a search warrant for Daniel's house. Emma watched silently as detectives searched every room. Hours passed. Nothing. Then one officer called out from the garage. "Detective!" Hidden behind an old cabinet was a locked steel box. Daniel lowered his head. Marcus opened it. Inside wasn't money. Or weapons. It was the manila envelope Claire had given Daniel. Still sealed. Still unopened. Across the front, in Claire's handwriting, were 7 chilling words. "Open only if they kill me." Marcus carefully broke the seal. Inside were dozens of financial records. Property deeds. Bank transfers. Photographs. And one newspaper clipping from 22 years earlier. The headline read, "Local woman declared dead. Returned 6 months later." Emma frowned. "What does that have to do with Mom?" Marcus slowly turned the yellowed newspaper over. On the back, Claire had written just one sentence. "They've done this before." The newspaper clipping lay on the evidence table. Its yellowed pages crackled beneath Detective Marcus Hale's fingers. The headline refused to leave his mind. "Local woman declared dead. Returned 6 months later." Claire hadn't been investigating only her own accident. She had been uncovering a pattern. One that stretched back decades. Marcus and Emma spent the next 6 hours combing through the files Claire had hidden inside the manila envelope. At first, the documents appeared unrelated. Insurance records. Property transfers. Death certificates. Bank statements. Then Emma noticed something. "Detective!" Marcus looked up. "Every one of these people officially died." She laid the files side by side. "But someone kept using their identities afterward." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" Emma pointed at a bank statement. "The account was active for 3 years after the woman supposedly died." Another file. "This man sold his house 2 years after his funeral." Another. "This woman renewed her driver's license 18 months after she was declared dead." Marcus slowly leaned back. "They weren't just fake deaths." He looked at Emma. "They were stolen lives." The files revealed 13 similar cases across Oregon and Washington over the past 25 years. Different names. Different accidents. Different towns. But always the same pattern. A tragic death. A closed casket. A rushed investigation. And missing evidence. Someone had perfected the art of making people disappear, while allowing others to quietly assume their identities. Meanwhile, Daniel sat alone in an interrogation room. Marcus entered carrying the gold signet ring. "I need you to tell me everything." Daniel stared at the table. "There isn't much left to tell." Marcus placed the ring in front of him. "You've seen this before." Daniel nodded. "Claire found a photograph." "What photograph?" "A group picture." He swallowed hard. "There were 12 people standing together." Marcus waited. "They were all officially dead." Silence filled the room. "But someone took that picture just 8 months ago." Marcus's pulse quickened. "Where is it?" Daniel closed his eyes. "Claire never showed me." That evening, Grace Lawson remembered something she had dismissed years earlier. She hurried to her attic and opened an old storage box filled with neighborhood photographs. One image stopped her cold. It was from a charity fundraiser held 5 years earlier. Grace's hands began to shake. Standing in the background, half hidden behind a crowd, was the same woman from the 22-year-old newspaper clipping. Officially dead, yet smiling at the camera. Grace immediately called Emma. "I found her." Marcus arranged a discreet meeting with the woman the following morning. Her current name was listed as Evelyn Ross. She agreed to meet only in a quiet park before sunrise. Wrapped in a gray coat, she sat alone on a bench overlooking the river. Marcus approached slowly. "My name is Detective Marcus Hale." Without looking at him, she replied, "I know who you are." Marcus sat beside her. You were declared dead 22 years ago. She nodded. Yes. So who are you really? For several seconds, she watched the water. Then she whispered, I don't remember anymore. Marcus felt a chill. What happened? They gave me a choice. What choice? Disappear forever. She looked directly into his eyes. Or watch my family die. Marcus's expression hardened. Who are they? She slowly raised her trembling hand. On her finger was a gold signet ring engraved with the letter K. I used to think it stood for a person's name. She slid the ring off and handed it to Marcus. But it's not a person. It's an organization. Marcus stared at the ring. What does the K stand for? Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. Keeper. The Keepers. They erase people and rewrite lives. Before Marcus could ask another question, a sniper's bullet shattered the park's morning silence. The shot struck the bench inches from Evelyn. Down! Marcus shouted. A second shot rang out. This one found its target. Evelyn collapsed into Marcus's arms. Blood spread across her gray coat. She struggled to breathe. Marcus leaned close. Evelyn, stay with me. With the last of her strength, she reached into his jacket pocket and slipped in a tiny brass key. There, she whispered. Marcus followed her eyes. Across the river stood an abandoned train station. Platform 9. Locker 214. Then her hand fell still. Marcus looked up just in time to see the sniper disappearing into the morning fog. Back at the police station, Emma emptied Marcus's jacket pocket. The brass key had a small metal tag attached. Stamped into it were 3 chilling words. The brass key lay in Detective Marcus Hale's palm. Tiny. Cold. Ordinary. Yet the word stamped into its tag changed everything. Claire is alive. Emma stared at it for several seconds before finally whispering. My mom knew she'd have to disappear. Marcus nodded. And she wanted us to find whatever's inside locker 214. But if the keepers know about it, they'll already be on their way. By 6:15 a.m., Marcus, Emma, Grace, and Daniel arrived at Portland's abandoned Union train station. The building had been closed for nearly 20 years. Broken windows. Rusted tracks. Graffiti covered the walls. The silence was unsettling. Marcus looked toward the faded platform signs. There. Platform 9. Exactly where Evelyn Ross had pointed before she died. The old baggage lockers stretched along a cracked concrete wall. Most had been forced open years earlier. Some hung crooked on broken hinges. Others were empty. Locker 214 stood untouched. Emma held the brass key with trembling fingers. You should do it, Marcus said softly. It's your mother's message. She nodded. The key slid into the lock. Click. The heavy metal door slowly creaked open. Inside was a weatherproof black backpack. Nothing else. Emma carefully lifted it out. It felt surprisingly heavy. The group moved to an abandoned waiting room before opening it. Marcus unzipped the bag. Inside were 3 passports, a hard drive, a thick leather journal, several stacks of cash, a burner phone, and 1 sealed envelope marked, for Emma, open only when you know the truth. Emma clutched the envelope against her chest. I'm not ready. Marcus nodded. Then don't. Instead, he picked up the leather journal. On the first page, Claire had written, If you're reading this, I failed to stop them. The journal detailed 18 months of Claire's investigation. Every page revealed another layer of the conspiracy. Fake deaths. Identity replacements. Witness disappearances. Corrupt officials. And one name appeared over and over again. The Kane Foundation. Marcus frowned. Victor Kane wasn't just involved. He financed everything, Daniel whispered. Grace looked stunned. The charity foundation? Daniel nodded. It wasn't a charity. It was a recruitment network. As Marcus continued reading, one page stopped him cold. Claire had taped a photograph into the journal. It showed Victor Kane shaking hands with another man outside a courthouse. Marcus's eyes widened. No! Emma looked over his shoulder. The second man wasn't a politician. He wasn't a businessman. He wasn't a criminal. He was Portland Police Commissioner Richard Collins. Marcus slowly closed the journal. The keepers are inside the police department. At that exact moment, Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID displayed Commissioner Collins. Everyone stared at the screen. Marcus answered carefully. Detective. Collins' calm voice came through the speaker. Where are you? I'm following up on Evelyn Ross. Then Collins spoke again. Leave the case alone. Marcus's grip tightened around the phone. Why? Because Claire Bennett is already dead. The line went silent. Marcus slowly lowered the phone. He knows. Suddenly, the burner phone inside the backpack vibrated. Everyone froze. Emma looked at Marcus. It shouldn't have service, Marcus answered. Neither of them spoke. A familiar voice filled the room. Soft, weak, emotional. Emma. Tears instantly filled Emma's eyes. Mom? I'm so sorry. Emma collapsed into a chair. Where are you? I don't have much time. Claire's breathing was heavy. They know you found the backpack. Marcus immediately looked toward the station entrance. We've been followed, Claire continued. Listen carefully. Mom, please come home. I can't. Why? Because someone in this room, Claire's voice cracked, is working for the keepers. Silence. Emma slowly looked around. Marcus, Grace, Daniel. No one moved. Claire whispered one final sentence. Don't let them read my last letter. The call disconnected. Before anyone could react, a loud explosion ripped through the abandoned station. The ceiling collapsed. Concrete and glass crashed to the floor. Marcus shoved Emma behind a pillar. Daniel pulled Grace to safety. Smoke filled the room. When it finally cleared, the backpack was gone. Only one item remained where it had fallen. Emma's unopened envelope. Across the room, Marcus noticed fresh footprints leading out a broken side door. There weren't 4 sets. There were 5. Someone had entered the station before the explosion. And someone had escaped with Claire's evidence. The smoke slowly settled over the abandoned train station. Concrete dust hung in the air like fog. Detective Marcus Hale coughed as he pulled Emma from beneath the fallen beams. Are you hurt? Emma shook her head. I'm okay. Marcus immediately looked around. Daniel was helping Grace to her feet. Both appeared shaken, but alive. Then Marcus looked toward the corner where the backpack had been. It was gone. Every passport, every document, the hard drive, Claire's journal. All of it. Gone. Only one thing remained. The sealed envelope addressed to Emma. Marcus examined the blast site. It wasn't meant to kill us. Daniel frowned. Then what was it for? Marcus pointed toward the missing backpack. It was a distraction. Someone had entered during the explosion, taken the evidence, and disappeared, without firing a single shot. Professional. Organized. The keepers had been one step ahead all along. Emma stared at the envelope in her hands. Across the front, Claire had written, For my little star. Grace gently smiled. She knew you'd find it. Emma carefully broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten letter. The paper smelled faintly of Claire before anyone could answer. Daniel suddenly collapsed. Grace rushed to his side. "Daniel!" His breathing became shallow. Marcus noticed a tiny red stain spreading across Daniel's shirt. The explosion hadn't injured him. He'd been grazed by a bullet during the attack. Daniel struggled to speak. "They..." Marcus knelt beside him. "Who?" "They knew." His breathing became weaker. "About the letter." Marcus looked into Daniel's frightened eyes. "Who told them?" Daniel slowly reached into his pocket. With shaking fingers, he handed Marcus a small silver keycard. Across the top were 2 words. Kane Tower. Marcus stared at it. "What's this?" Daniel whispered. "Claire wanted me to give you this. Only if..." He couldn't finish. His eyes closed. "Daniel!" Emma cried. He opened them one last time. Looking directly at his daughter, he whispered, "I never betrayed your mother." Then his hand fell limp. The room became silent. Grace began to cry softly. Emma buried her face against her father's chest. Marcus checked for a pulse. Weak, but still there. "He's alive!" Relief washed over the room. An ambulance was already on its way. As the paramedics carried Daniel out, Marcus stood alone, staring at the keycard. Kane Tower. The headquarters of Victor Kane's foundation. He turned it over. Etched into the back was a handwritten message in Claire's unmistakable handwriting. "The truth isn't in the files. It's in the basement." Marcus slowly looked toward the Portland skyline visible through the broken station windows. For months, everyone had been searching for Claire. Now, the answers were waiting beneath the very building owned by the man everyone trusted most. The rain had returned. Portland's skyline disappeared behind sheets of water as Detective Marcus Hale parked across the street from Kane Tower. 43 floors of steel and glass stretched into the night. Above the entrance glowed the words, "Kane Foundation." To the city, it was a symbol of generosity. To Marcus, it had become the front door to a nightmare. Daniel had survived surgery. The bullet had missed his heart by less than an inch. Before being taken into the operating room, he had grabbed Marcus's wrist. "Don't waste time." Marcus leaned closer. "Why?" Daniel whispered only 4 words. "They're moving tonight." Marcus, Emma, and Grace entered the tower through an underground parking garage. The silver keycard beeped once. A hidden elevator door slid open. Emma frowned. "That wasn't on the building plans." Marcus wasn't surprised anymore. "Nothing about this case has been." The elevator had only one button. B1. Marcus pressed it. Instead of going down 1 floor, the elevator continued descending. 5 seconds. 10. 20. 30. Grace looked at the display. "There is no basement this deep." The doors finally opened. The 3 stepped into a vast underground archive. Rows upon rows of steel shelves stretched into the darkness. Thousands of neatly labeled boxes. Thousands of lives. Marcus picked up the nearest file. "Bennett, Claire Elizabeth." Emma gasped. "Mom!" The file wasn't thin. It contained decades of surveillance. School report cards. Medical records. Photographs. Every address she had ever lived at. Every phone call. Every job interview. Every vacation. Grace whispered. "They watched her entire life." Marcus opened another box. Then another. Each carried a different family name. Each represented another stolen life. The keepers hadn't simply erased people. They had documented them. Obsessively. At the center of the archive stood a circular room. Its walls were covered with hundreds of photographs. Marcus slowly walked inside. Every photograph showed the same thing. A funeral. Different cities. Different years. Different families. One thing never changed. In the back row of every funeral, a single figure dressed in black. Watching. Emma stared in disbelief. They attended every funeral. Grace looked closer. No. She pointed to one photograph taken 22 years earlier. The woman standing at the back wasn't a stranger. It was Evelyn Ross. Officially dead. Watching another fake funeral, Marcus realized the horrifying truth. The keepers always make the living watch. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the archive. I was hoping you'd find this place. The lights came on. Standing on a balcony above them was Victor Kane. Elegant black suit. Perfectly calm. He began clapping slowly. Congratulations, detective. Marcus drew his weapon. Don't move! Victor smiled. You still believe this is about money? It isn't? No. Victor looked toward Emma. It's about control. He descended the staircase without fear. I've spent 40 years protecting people. Emma shouted. By stealing their lives? Victor nodded calmly. Sometimes a new life is the only way to survive. Marcus stepped forward. You murdered innocent people. Victor shook his head. No. I gave them choices. Grace's voice trembled. Evelyn never had a choice. Victor's expression grew cold. She broke the rules. Marcus held up the arrest warrant. Victor Kane, you're under arrest. Victor laughed. For what? Marcus frowned. Conspiracy. Murder. Kidnapping. Victor looked almost amused. You still don't understand. He reached into his jacket and removed a small remote. I've already lost. Emma's heart raced. What does that mean? Victor pressed the button. Across the archive, hundreds of file cabinets burst into flames. Within seconds, the underground vault became an inferno. Marcus shouted. No! Victor calmly backed toward another hallway. The keepers don't keep evidence. They keep secrets. Then he disappeared behind a steel security door. It slammed shut. Locked. Gone. Smoke filled the archive. Sprinklers failed to activate. Emma covered her mouth. We have to leave. Marcus grabbed Claire's file. Then another. He couldn't save thousands of lives, but he could save the truth. As they ran toward the elevator, Emma noticed something inside her mother's file. A recent photograph. Dated 3 days ago. Claire stood outside a small white lighthouse overlooking the Pacific Ocean. On the back, in Claire's handwriting, were 6 words. Don't come alone. Trust Marcus. Emma looked up. My mom was alive 3 days ago. Marcus nodded. And she wanted us to find her. Before the elevator doors closed, Grace looked back one final time. Through the smoke, a woman stood at the far end of the burning archive. Black coat. Dark hair. The same gentle posture. Claire. She smiled at Emma, then quietly disappeared behind the flames. Emma screamed. M.O.M. The elevator doors closed. As they rose toward the surface, Marcus stared at the photograph. He finally understood. Claire hadn't been running from the keepers anymore. She had been leading them somewhere. Somewhere they believed was more valuable than their own secrets. The lighthouse stood alone against the Oregon coast. Waves crashed violently against the cliffs below. The beam of light swept endlessly across the dark Pacific, cutting through the fog every few seconds. Detective Marcus Hale parked several hundred yards away. No sirens, he said. No backup. Emma looked toward the lighthouse. My mom asked us to trust you. Marcus nodded. And she also told us not to come alone. Grace frowned. Then why does it feel like we're already too late? Inside the lighthouse, A single lantern burned on an old wooden table. Beside it sat 2 steaming cups of tea. Someone had been waiting. Emma slowly stepped forward. "Mom?" Silence. Then, footsteps echoed from the spiral staircase. A woman emerged from the shadows. Black coat, dark hair, tired eyes. For a moment, no one moved. Emma's voice broke into a whisper. "Mom!" Claire Bennett smiled through tears. "My little star." Emma ran into her mother's arms. For the first time in the entire story, mother and daughter held each other. Neither wanted to let go. Daniel, pale but alive after leaving the hospital against medical advice, quietly entered behind Marcus. Claire looked at him. "You stubborn man." Daniel laughed through tears. "You know me." Then they embraced. The Bennett family was finally together again. Claire looked at Marcus. "You found the archive." He nodded. "It burned." "I knew it would." "You knew?" Claire sighed. "I never hid the truth in those files." Marcus frowned. "Then where is it?" Claire walked to the center of the room and placed a small metal box on the table. "I've been carrying it for 27 years. Inside were dozens of original ledgers. Names, dates, financial transactions, audio recordings, video cassettes, original birth certificates. Unlike the archive beneath Kane Tower, these were originals, not copies. "They can burn buildings," Claire said. "They can't erase this." Suddenly, the lighthouse lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Marcus reached for his flashlight. A red laser dot appeared on the wall. Then another. Then another. Snipers. Emma's heartbeat quickened. "They found us!" Victor Kane's voice echoed from outside. "It's over, Claire." She calmly closed the metal box. "No. It finally begins." Marcus looked confused. Claire smiled. "I wasn't hiding. I was gathering witnesses." Headlights appeared across the coastal road. One vehicle. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, more than 30 cars surrounded the lighthouse. Men and women stepped out. Old, young, different races, different professions. Some were teachers, some doctors, some firefighters, some judges. Every one of them had once been declared legally dead. Grace gasped. "The ghosts!" Claire nodded. "We found each other." Victor Kane stepped from the darkness, surrounded by armed men. "You really think they'll believe you?" Claire smiled. "They don't have to believe me." She handed Marcus one final flash drive. "They'll believe themselves." Marcus connected the drive to a portable projector inside the lighthouse. A video filled the wall. Victor Kane, Police Commissioner Collins, judges, politicians, corporate executives, all recorded in secret meetings, ordering fake deaths, approving identity theft, silencing witnesses, accepting millions of dollars in illegal payments. Every crime, every face, every confession. Victor's confidence disappeared. "You?" Claire interrupted him. "I recorded everything." The sound of helicopters filled the sky. Victor smiled again. "You called your friends?" Marcus looked upward. "No." The helicopters weren't private security. They belonged to the FBI. Behind them came state police, federal marshals, and dozens of news helicopters broadcasting live. Claire had secretly mailed copies of the evidence to multiple federal agencies and national news organizations days before the meeting. No single person could bury the truth anymore. Commissioner Collins was arrested before sunrise. Victor Kane tried to flee. He never made it past the lighthouse gate. For the first time in 40 years, The keepers had nowhere left to hide. 6 months later, the Bennett family gathered once again inside St. Matthew's Church. This time, no coffins, no tears, only gratitude. Claire stood at the front, officially declared alive. Every false death orchestrated by the keepers was under federal review. Dozens of families had begun finding loved ones they thought were gone forever. Detective Marcus Hale was promoted for exposing one of the largest criminal conspiracies in Oregon's history. Grace Lawson became a volunteer helping reunited families rebuild their lives. Daniel squeezed Claire's hand. "I almost lost you twice." Claire smiled. "But you didn't." Emma laughed through happy tears. "And next time." She looked at both her parents. "Let's skip the funeral." Everyone laughed. For the first time in years, the sound felt normal. As the family walked out of the church together, Emma paused at the last pew. The same place where the mysterious note had been left. She smiled, then quietly placed a handwritten note on the bench. 5 simple words. "Love always finds its way." She slipped her hand into Claire's. Together, the Bennett family stepped into the morning sunlight. No longer hiding. No longer running. Finally, home.